Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you know that this is my series in which I use tarot and oracle cards to explore topics related to living the intentional life. And we've got a very interesting topic today. And a topic that is very relevant, I believe. Perhaps you know, perhaps you don't know, but in Texas this week, at the time of this filming, it was yesterday, for me, that there was yet another shooting in the state of Texas, in the United States, a shooting at a school. And I believe 18 were killed in the shooting. The shooter also, I believe, died. A painful, heart-wrenching situation that is even more heart-wrenching because it doesn't have to be this way. There are solutions. There are other problems as well. I mean, it's not only the problem of guns being too available and too accessible to anybody in the United States. There are other problems in the United States like social racism, which I was just talking about with a colleague friend of mine this week. There are many problems, and global problems. There are the problems of global warming. There are the problems of invasions of other countries and refugees and the results of global warming, like floods and refugees from areas that are now starving because they can't grow the crops to live anymore. There are so many problems around the world, and usually this YouTube channel is not focused on the problems. And this video is not focused on the problems either. However, the problems are our platform for launching into this week's spread. Because I'd like to know what you think. When you think about these problems, global warming, shooting children in schools, racism, interpersonal racism, but social racism, invasions of other countries. Do you ever think, have you ever heard others say, that if only we had more information, if only people knew more about the truth of global warming, for example, or the possibility of regulating firearms, or how to find the proper mate for them, if only we knew more, if only we understood the situations better, if only we understood how people who are affected by social racism feel, if only we understood how the people who are suffering because their child has been killed feel, if only we understood how the people who live in the countries who are being invaded by Russia, by the United States, by other countries feel, how they live their lives, if we understood, if we knew, we would change. Have you said that to yourself? Have you heard others say that? If only we understood, if only we knew. This week's Tarot and Oracle spread is pointing us in a different direction. That knowledge and understanding are perhaps not the root, not cause, but the root spark, the root seed for change. Perhaps the seed for change does not lie in understanding and knowledge. Perhaps it lies elsewhere. And perhaps if we find where that seed truly lies, we can feed it, nurture it, allow it to grow into real change in our personal lives and socially. But honestly, the most important change for any one of us, for each of us as individuals, really is with the individual. This is not a quote by Gandhi. I've done research, and the attribution is, as far as I've found so far, incorrect. However, it's a good quote. It's a phenomenal quote. Be the change we want to see in the world. We want global warming. We want all of these problems to change. We want to be the change. Social racism, the structures of racism. We don't change the structure, we change ourselves. First, changing ourselves. What does that mean when it comes to social racism? It means we be the ones who work to change the social structures. Instead of being the ones who want to say, let's all calm down, let's keep our heads about us, let's not argue and fight. We're the ones who stand up and speak the truth of social racism and every other problem. Now, that doesn't mean that standing up and speaking our truth equals physical violence or verbal attacks on the characters of the people we think we want to change. But it does mean standing up for the truth that we know and being the action in the world. So, does that come from knowledge? Does it come from facts? Does it come from information? Does it really come from an intellectual understanding of what the problem really is? Does it really take going to school? Does it really take going to a library to study or to research and find facts and understand those facts? Or does it take something else? That's what today's tarot spread and oracle spread are here to discuss with us, I believe. And so, because change is part of living an intentional life, we're going with it. We're going with this topic because this is part of living life intentionally, is it not? An intentional life is a life of co-creation with all of us here on this planet and wherever the heck else intelligent life exists. And also with what we consider unintelligent life. Yeah? Our furry friends. We co-create with our furry friends. We co-create with our feathered friends, our scaled friends, our insectile friends, our bacteria, viral friends. We create with all that there is. We co-create with all that there is. And that is living the intentional life. And part of living the intentional life is also awareness of things we want to change and placing those changes out on the powerful current of our intention and allowing ourselves to move in that direction. Individually, and as we move individually, as each one of us moves individually with the powerful flow of intention towards the change that we want to be in the world, we affect all of those around us because all of those around us are co-creating with us. Our movement with our intention is not in isolation. So, this is a very important spread, I believe. Let me show you the spread that we've got for this week. Isn't this a beautiful spread? I say that every week. But still, isn't this a beautiful spread? These cards are gorgeous. They look deep, profound, meaningful together. More meaningful than they might look individually, I believe. Their interaction and the interweaving of color, form, shape, and idea adds great depth to the readings with this pairing of cards. And if you're curious about who created the cards and what the names of the decks are, there will be a short clip at the end of this video which gives you that information. And as usual, there will also be links below so that you can go and look at the decks on your own and see if you'd be interested in buying them, and you can purchase them at those sites. Because all of these are, at the moment of this filming, still very readily available. The tarot decks are actually the Oracle deck is also mass market. The one indie deck has been in publication for the last 3 years, and I don't see it going out of print anytime soon. So if you want these cards, go get them. End of commercial. And I don't get any financial remuneration if you use those links. They're just there for your convenience. Now, end of commercial. Yes, the spread, beautiful spread. And a deeply profound spread, more profound than I thought it would be when I first laid it out. When I lay these spreads out, let me tell you my process. I lay the spread out on a Saturday night. And then on Sunday morning, when the sun is bright and shiny and I can get the best photos I can, then I take the photos, the pictures, on a Sunday morning. And then on Tuesday afternoon, that's when I really dive into the spread. I let myself sit with the spread between Saturday night and Tuesday. I sit with the spread to ruminate, to digest, to see where this is really taking me. And then on Tuesday, I really go in and start reading the spread for real, for consciously, logically, focused, a more focused reading. And then, so I lay that all out, I get it all prepared, and then the next day I film this. Here I am, the next day, filming. And between Sunday and today, a lot of things have come up. Like I said, there's been yet another shooting that everybody is talking about in the United States. I spoke to a colleague or a friend about social racism this week. I don't speak about social racism that frequently because, one, I'm not in the United States, and the people around me are not that focused on social racism here in South Korea. Though it exists here, not to the extent of the United States, but it exists everywhere. But this week has been a week of that kind of interaction, that kind of communication. And having that come up between when the spread was laid and now has informed how I'm going to be reading this spread. Keeping in mind that we are still talking about living an intentional life. Because our social interactions and our personal interactions are all part and parcel of our intentional lives, right? Of course, right. So, we're going to be going into this spread with a lot in the background. With a broad perspective, shall I say. And if this is your first time here, let me give you a quick overview of what you just saw. What you saw, there were 5 oracle cards in the center, which give us the theme, the thesis statement of the spread. I usually like to think of this spread as a kind of essay. So the central cards were the thesis statement, and you saw that there were 5 from one oracle deck. And those 5 cards gave us information in the order of elements. Now, we usually think of elements, there being 4 elements in the West. In the East, there are 5, but in the West, there are 4. Fire, water, air, and earth. The 5th element, which some of us in the West also consider, is the element of ether, of spirit, of the non-physical. So, those 5 cards represent those 5 elements. The central one being ether, spirit, non-physical. And then from bottom right, moving counterclockwise, we had fire for passion, sexuality, creativity. Water for emotions, the unconscious, intuition. Moving around to upper left with air for the mind, for vision, for planning, for communication. Then down to earth for the physical stuff of this universe, the matter. Could be finances, could be health, could be physical structures, could be the work we do. Yeah, fire is the creativity, the passion, perhaps even leadership. I forgot leadership. Leadership. The pentacles, the earths is the actual work, the tasks, that side of work. So we got that 5-card spread in the center, arranged by element. And then around that 5-card spread of oracle cards, there were inquiry cards. There were 4 inquiry cards. And on top of each inquiry card, there was 1 card from 2 different tarot decks answering the question on the inquiry card. And so that's the order that we're going to be reading the spread in. We'll read the central cards and then the questions which are answered by tarot cards. Are you all ready? Are you strapped in? Let's take a look at the central spread from the overall spread. I just realized I told a little bit of a lie of omission when I was talking about the process. I left off one little stage, which might help your understanding. After I've laid the cards out, I actually do one reading that very night. I do a quick overview reading of the entire spread briefly, a very short reading. And then I spend a couple of days and then I do another more focused, dissecting kind of reading of the spread. So this process makes perhaps a little bit more sense to you, I hope. Maybe not. Let's move into the cards. Okay, so we had these 5 cards, the 5 oracle cards. And when I lay out these cards, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, I lay them out from the central card, from the ether card, the spirit, non-physical card, to fire, to water, to air, to earth. And I've continued laying them in that order because laying them down in that order is the most convenient for me. But it's interesting that even though I lay them that way, and I had originally, when I first decided this spread, I had intended to read them in that direction, from spirit down to fire, to water, to air, to earth. The way I see the flow of energy into creation. However, after my first reading with this oracle, I noticed that the cards really wanted to be read in the opposite direction. They wanted to be read beginning with earth, in the ascending direction. So that's the direction we're going to read again today. Now we're going to start with earth and then move up into air, then over to water, down to fire, back up into spirit. Now, I'm not saying that actually water is up and fire is down. That's just the order, the direction that I've laid these out because I like the way that spiral works. And the first card that we're going to look at in this position of earth is the flower of life. And this is a very common sacred geometry form, and I've drawn this many times. I practiced drawing the flower of life a few years ago as part of my own practice of investigating sacred geometry and all of that wonderful stuff. So, this flower of life is something we can draw fairly easily if you have a compass. A thing with 2 points, one a point that will give you the center of your circle, and the other holding your drawing instrument, which could be a pencil or a pen or something else, and you use this thing to draw a circle. Remember those things from elementary school, perhaps, or maybe high school? And you could draw one of these very, very easily. It doesn't take all that much skill. And this flower of life is a beautiful shape, I believe. I know. To me, it is a beautiful shape. And in this deck, it is the card for the language of silence and the language of light, which one would think might actually be more in the air suit, or in the position of air. Now, air, vision, light. Yeah? Silence, communication. But this landed in the earth position. So what is it trying to tell us about our physical natures? Well, according to the book, this shape represents the information systems in all of their forms, here in the physical realm. And I'm riffing on that, which could include things like computers. Now, computers are information systems, right? It could be the computer circuitry in our phones, in our computers, in our gadgets of all shapes, sizes, and forms. But it's also the information that we hold in our cells. Now, our bodies, of course, hold information. Each cell holds information. It's called DNA and RNA and transfer RNA, messenger RNA. That's all information. The membranes of our cells also hold information. The entire system of our cells contains processes and responds to information. There is information in the galaxies of the universe. There's information in each atom of each molecule. There's information. That's all contains and is information. And we're asked to open our awareness to the presence of the information that is here in the present moment with the flower of life. The flower of life, you saw that intricate pattern. It almost looks like a circuit board, doesn't it? In a way, a geometric, somehow somewhat organic in the sense of living material, organic, a circuit board. Doesn't it? It looks like that to me. And so this card is here to remind us to be present to the information that exists right here, right now, in the present moment. That the blueprint of creation is always speaking to us. That blueprint, which is in every atom, in every subatomic particle, in every galaxy, in the dark matter that is everywhere. At least that's what we understand, that dark matter is everywhere. I think so. That's what we're saying now. There's information everywhere, and we want to be open to it, present to it, and know that we have the information we want. We have the information that we need. That's not to say that new information is not coming. That is not to say that information doesn't evolve or grow or accumulate or become revealed from other sources or from the movement through space and time. We're always getting new information. We're also recognizing new problems, but we're always getting new information, certainly. But we don't have to wait for new information to know that we have all of the information that we need at this present moment, at this present place. We have it. It is here. We have access to it. And yes, more information will be coming. And when it comes, that's great. But that doesn't mean that we don't have enough now. We have enough. We have an abundance of information right here, right now. And we want to be open and aware to it, aware of it, and listen to it. Pay attention to it. Because it's there. It's here, I should say. It's not there, it's here. And for you, it's here. It's where we are, when we are. At every moment of every day in these physical bodies, in this physical universe. We got the information. Understanding doesn't require much more. Just understanding only requires us opening to it. Being present with it, listening to it. So when we think of these problems around the globe of global warming, of shootings of children, when we think of these problems around the world, the information that we need is here, right now. At the moment of the problem, the information is here. The understanding is possible. It's here. Not something we have to wait for, not something we have to work for, not something we have to go out and get. It's here. Right here, right now. And that's why this card showed up in the physical universe spot of the spread, because again, it is here, it is now, it is present in the physicalness that we are. So we move up to air now. And in the air card, I love this this image that was drawn by who? Leonardo Da Vinci, one of my, okay, so I'm not entirely Italian. I'm only like a little bit Italian, but that little bit of Italian is the locus, it's the mise en scene, it's where I grew up, really. Yeah, I have other nationalities in my bloodline. Yeah, I've got Lithuanian, I've got Welsh, I've got Scots, I've got Irish, I've got German, I've got a whole bunch. I'm a hodgepodge. But the family I grew up in was centered in my Italian part of the family, in my Italian part of the neighborhood of Chicago. That's where I was born. And so that I identify most with my Italianness, more so than my Britishness or my Germanness or my Baltic heritage. I've got a little bit of a draw there, but mostly I'm most identified with my little bitty bit of Italian. So, Leonardo da Vinci, we're back to Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci drew this picture, the Vitruvius Man. Yeah? The guy standing like this, and like this, and like this, and like this, yeah? And in this deck, this image is the idea of the divinity of humankind. And it's in the air suit, right? It's our understanding, our perception, and the way we communicate. Divinity of humankind. Do you believe that? Do you know that? That the divinity of humankind. The divinity of you. The divinity of me. The divinity of that shooter in the high school. Can you get there? The divinity of the CEOs in the corporate headrooms of the oil companies. Can you get there? Those are a little more difficult, right? Each one of us is the divine expressing itself here in human form in one way or another. So what's the difference? How is it that we have such different perspectives of this life? How is it that some of us seem to be so destructive? Does that mean the divine is that destructive? Is the divine evil? Does the divine do acts of evil? I'm not going to answer for you. I'm going to answer for me. No, it doesn't. But while as we are, each individual, humans, non-humans, the eternal natures that we are here in these and co-creating these human bodies or non-human bodies, as we are here creating this physical life, spirit having a physical experience. As we're having these physical experiences, we are more or less acting, behaving, being our divine selves. And there are times when we resist the purity, the love, the joy, the awareness, the well-being that we are because of perhaps other experiences, because of something that we have lived through. We change from those pure, innocent, beautiful, loving, generous, healthy babies that we were born as or born to be. We change from that into sometimes one who goes and destroys other life forms, either directly or indirectly. But that doesn't mean that that person or those people have lost their divine selves. It's in there. It's in there somewhere. Each and all of us are divine. And what we want to do is express the divine as much as we can and have faith and hope. Faith, belief, knowing that as we express the divine, the more of us who express the divine, the more the divine will be revealed in all of the others around us. We in these bodies are in search of ideals most of the time. For some of us, the ideal is a stronger pull or a stronger need, should I say, a need. We need the ideal than others. We are in search of ideals, universal truths, as they relate to us in our present lives. And those of us who are theoretical now I can't think of the word. It's not physician, it's physicists, theoretical physicists. Those of us who are theoretical physicists find a relationship between that, for some of us, perhaps unrelatable physics, structure and understandings, and our personal lives. But some of us can see that and the importance of that in our personal present lives in this physical universe more than others. We are all in our own way in search of ideals and universal truths as we are in these bodies in this physical universe. But as we look for these ideals, for these universal truths, some of us, probably most of us, get so attached to the ideal, the truth, that we start resisting things that are not in alignment with or do not match up with our ideal. We have this image of this perfect society that we think could exist, and we see the society that we live in and we see that they are not the same, and we resist the one that we don't like. We believe in this universal truth of love, and we see the lack of love in our experience around the world, in our experience in our daily lives, and then we resist that. We block it out. We hide ourselves from it. We fight against it. We try to destroy it. We have our own individual reactions to it, but we resist it. And we say no, which is fine. Which is fine. I'm not saying we can't say no. That's part of the beauty of living in these physical bodies, in this physical universe, is that we can say, no, I don't want that. Yes, I do want this. And that's part of living the intentional life, saying, no, I don't want this. Yes, I do want this. I want more of this. And my intention flows in this direction. That's the perfect way to live our lives intentionally. However, a lot of us don't get to that second part. We stop at, no, I don't want this. No, I don't want this. And we don't move into what we do want. We start fighting with the thing that we don't want. And we think that that is the way to fix the situation. And the fight is not the solution. The fight is not the solution. We stand up for the solution, yes. We live the solution. We work for the solution. We do all the things that Martin Luther King said. We bring the solution out into the universe. This is the truth. This is what life is. This is what love is. This is what joy is. This is what justice is. This is what all of that is. We bring that out into the universe. We don't sit and watch and say, well, this isn't good, but, that is, I should put the quote down here from Martin Luther King, which is relevant. And I'm not quoting here, but let me give you the gist. Worse than actual individual racists, worse than the people in the Ku Klux Klan in the United States, worse than the people who are trying to limit women's access of control of their bodies, worse than those individuals, worse than that, are the people who think that, no, those people are wrong, but I don't want to fight. Let's not fight. The peacekeeping in white liberal Democrat. And I'm not saying that we need to go to war. It's not the peace, it's the peacekeeping of, we're not going to do anything, we're just going to, let's just wait for it to happen naturally sometime in the future. Let's just keep going as we are because we don't want to cause a fight. We don't want to make those other people too angry. We don't want to upset the cart. Let's toss out some crumbs so that these people can be. Now remember, there is that sense of these people, these black people, these gay people, these environmentally interested people, these Green New Deal people. Give them some crumbs so they'll be quiet. And then we don't want to rile up those other people. Those people are the most dangerous. Those are the worst people. The false friends. Okay, now I'm getting off of the soapbox. Because that's not living life intentionally either. Living life intentionally is coming into the truth, speaking the truth, not being afraid to speak the truth because you're afraid of causing waves. You speak the truth. You are the truth. You live the truth. You see the thing you don't want, you say no to that, yes to this, and let's move this way. That's the intentional life. So how does this relate to the Vitruvian man, the Vitruvius man? It relates to this card because we have our ideals, we have our universal truths that we hope for, we strive for, we dream of, we try to find, and when we find them, we relish them, we fall in love with them, and then we see that things are not the same, and instead of fighting with those things, we learn to accept the perfection of things as they are, including the perfection of who we are right now. Does that just sound like what I just said was the worst evil? There's a great difference between I accept who I am, I accept where I am right now, I accept this. This is where I am, and I'm not going to try and fight where I am. I'm going to move in the direction of my ideal. I'm not going to resist what is, because that is futile. It is. It's here. And I'm going to move in the direction of the universal truth that I see. We want to release judgment about perceived imperfections. Does not mean we have to say yes to things we don't like. That's not what we mean. Don't like this, like this. Don't want that, want that. But instead of wasting energy on being judgmental, that energy can be used to open and move in another direction. To stand up and speak and be like Martin Luther King, like Gandhi. As far as I know, like Nelson Mandela. Like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Like so many people. Like us, when we are the best selves that we are, when we fully accept who we are, knowing that we are still evolving, still growing, still learning, but I accept who I am, where I am. I do not judge myself for the things I do not know yet, that I don't understand yet. I open to that, remember in the Earth card, the understanding and the information that is available to me. Because it's in our resistance that we cut ourselves off from the information and understanding that is available to us. And I move with my mind, with my perceptions, with my communication. I move into water, because that's the direction I like to move. I move into water. And this card in the water section is our invitation card. Invitation to other dimensions. Woo, other dimensions. And that means so many different things to so many people. It's not worth really getting into. Is it like another dimension, like there's the third dimension that we notice being all physical and being solid objects and non-solid objects and atoms and all of that. Well, not so much atoms. Atoms. Okay, atoms. And then there's the fourth dimension, which is like time. And then there's that kind of dimension, or is it like there are a million different dimensions or an infinite number of dimensions, and each time that we make a choice, another dimension or another universe springs into being, that kind of thing? Or are we talking about dimensions of psychic perception? I mean, there's so many ways that we use that word dimensions, other aspects, other ways of perceiving could be another way of understanding this other dimensions thing. And in this card, what do we see? It reminds me a little bit of the High Priestess card from the Aleister Crowley Thoth deck. A little bit. It reminds me of that. With the net and the figure. But we see this figure with a network of energy, and we don't really see the figure through the energy very clearly, but you see it there in the background, behind this web of bright lights and in a pattern of energetic dispersal, and it looks like maybe it's a portal or maybe not. But I think it's supposed to be a portal, a doorway into non-physical, perhaps. Perhaps this could be our unperceived connection with the eternal natures that we are, and through the eternal natures that we are, the infinite divine consciousness, awareness, being, that all of this is within. A doorway, a portal to that. A portal of connection, of interaction, of understanding, of interrelationship. And this card is here to remind us, to give ourselves permission to explore. A lot of us, I think, have forgotten the eternal natures that we are. and how we relate to all that there is through the divine. Whatever we want to call that divine. Be it Allah, God, Yahweh, Brahman, Great Mother, Divine Mother, Gaia, Great Father, Sky Father, Heavenly Mother. There are so many names. The name's not so important. Universal consciousness. Give ourselves permission to explore our connection to and also the fullness of what that is. Our deep connection with Spirit. This connection, oftentimes we describe it as this connection with the divine. But this connection is deep. And because we're here in these physical bodies in this physical universe, we on a physical planet, we wouldn't describe it if we were in the void of space. There wouldn't be so much ups and downs. But here we are on a planet with gravity, with an atmosphere, and we point up for the sky and down for the earth, and that's our perspective right now, right? So oftentimes we think of the divine as being up there or out there, and we go like we do this kind of gesture. But the divine is deep. We connect with the divine, which is, going physicsy here, as infinite as it is singular. All of the singularities in this universe are the entirety of the divine, just as much as all of this universe is within the divine. So our connection to the divine isn't just this, it's also this. I'm going to connect with the infinite universe right here. And I'm not pointing to this, but right here. The deep connection to Spirit and grounding ourselves in the present moment. Instead of going off in flights of fancy, which are also wonderful and valid. Flights of fancy are beautiful, creative ways of imagining and creating the lives we want to live. But we also, at the same time, ground. Part of our connection, the fullness of our connection with divine is both the rising up and the grounding at the same time. It's when we experience that entire spectrum of being, that's when we are the most connected with the eternal natures that we are and the divine. And we want to have courage to leave the security and the comfort and the knowledge of what we feel and see with these bodies right here and right now, and be open to the unknown. Be it the unknown future that we imagine and we are moving into, or the unknown, that the non-physical that we can't directly perceive with these senses, and so is a little bit, now feels foreign to us as we've lived in these bodies for such a long time. Such a long time relative to our human lifespans. Not such a long time in relation to the eternal natures that we are, but in these physical minds and these physical bodies co-creating this physical experience, we feel like we've been in these bodies a long time, right? And so we get so used to this, that unknown can be disconcerting, can be uncomfortable for a lot of us, I think. And so we want to be willing to open ourselves to that. And because this is a water card, and it kind of looks like a water card, doesn't it? Doesn't it look like energy moving through water, in wave patterns through space, like water moves in waves? This connection is an emotional connection. It's an unconscious connection. Sorry, adjusting my seat. It's an unconscious in the sense of the conscious and unconscious, the air and the water, which are not completely separated. They are together. They are in fact one, but they look different to our human eyes. There is no definitive line where this is where water stops and this is where air begins. There is no definitive line between those two. And if you want information on that, let me know and I'll point you in the right direction. But there is no definitive line between the unconscious and the conscious, between our emotions and our thoughts. There is no line there. Why was I saying that? Because this card is a card of emotion, and it's a card of our water and unconscious. And this connection is through the unconscious, through the water nature that we are. That's where our connection with the divine, this way and this way and this way is. And this way. So, the next card, the wise friend. This is an interesting card. What did it look like to you? Did it look like a tree? That's what it is. It's a tree. The wise friend, nature's wisdom. And this is in our fire suit. Now in Tarot, and in many oracle cards as well. In Tarot, definitely. Now, in Tarot, the suits can be shifted by some creators. For example, one creator of a kind of tarot deck in the late 1800s, early 1900s, Uds Picard, put the cups in the air as a symbol for air, and swords as a symbol of emotion and water. And there's a whole reason for that, which I now kind of understand, but some people switch elements. Some people switch the element of fire and air. Now, some people, when they create their decks, the swords are fire and the wands are air. So, different strokes for different folks, right? But most of the time, when we look at all decks out there, most of them use the suit of wands for fire because, well, one of the tricks to remembering that is wood burns. Wood is also where we get our magic wands from, and magic, that passion, that fire, that creativity of magic is a wand suit or baton. So it's interesting that in the fire suit, a tree appears. Not saying we want to burn the tree down, that's not what we're saying, but this is nature's wisdom. This is a card that, interestingly, is telling us to go hug a tree. Not just any tree, go hug an ancient tree. Go out and find the oldest tree you can find and go out and not only give it a hug, interact with it, live with it, be with it. Because according to this deck, and I can understand that ancient trees, older trees hold wisdom. They hold wisdom, and that they will share that wisdom with us if we are open to it. That wisdom is not going to be the wisdom of a book, for example. It's not going to be that kind of communication. But trees are living entities. Trees have, especially older trees, have been around quite a while, and they've gained life experience. And they are open to sharing that life experience with us. Perhaps not in exactly the same way that your grandmother or your grandfather would share life experience with you. But they're open to sharing their information. They hold information and they can share it with us in their own language. So when we spend time with a tree, helicopter, when we spend time with a tree, we want to tune into their language, which means quieting the mind, opening the heart, and just being ready to receive. We could offer prayers honoring the tree. Not that, do you think the tree needs the prayers? No. The tree's not standing there saying, I'm not telling you anything until you say a prayer to me. That's not what's going on here, right? But our honoring the tree and praying, offering prayers to the tree, those are ways of opening ourselves to the presence, the divine presence that is in the living tree, just as there is divine presence in each one of us. So we offer prayer, we offer gratitude, we honor the tree, and then we sit and be in the presence of the tree. We breathe in the presence of the tree. I don't know if you know this, but there's a symbiotic relationship between us and plants, that we exhale carbon dioxide, they inhale carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. It's a wonderful cycle. So we do share more than just space. We share life force, we share life energy, and we can share information, we can share understanding as well. So sit in the presence of an older tree rather than a young sapling, one that's been around and has information to share, an elder. And now this card is also telling us to not expect direct answers, which is great because this is not in the air suit. It's not in the suit of knowledge and information. It's in the suit of fire and passion and creativity and inspiration. So we can receive inspiration. We can receive perhaps even the translation of the ether into physical, the way that ether translates into the physical first through the fire suit. We can get that information through the tree as well. So that's a wonderful recommendation. If we have time, that's something we want to do. We want to be with nature, and one wonderful way to be with nature is to be with an old tree. An old living tree. And then we move right into the ether. Into the ether, we went from the first card, which was the flower of life, into the seed of life. Isn't that interesting? Now, we started with the flower, and we're working our way back into the seed. The seed, beginnings of change. And the beginnings of change did not come from learning new information, really. We get information, yes. We open to information, yes. We open to understanding and wisdom, yes. But the beginnings of change happen in spirit. This card is here to remind us that we have begun to change. At every moment of every day, we have begun to change. Anything that doesn't change or evolve or grow in one way or the other, in cycles, yes, but grow and evolve, dies, stagnates and dies. If we are here, alive and living in this physical universe, we are changing. Maybe not as quickly as we hoped to, but we are changing, we are evolving. We have begun to change, and we've left the security we have known, and we are seeking a new way of being. We're seeking a new way of seeing the world. We're seeking a new way of understanding the world, and also we're seeking a new being of ourselves in the world. We're on a pilgrimage of understanding self, which I think is what this whole physical universe is in the first place. It was the divine wanting to know and understand self. And so, as extensions of our eternal natures, which are extensions of the divine into this physical universe, we are here on a pilgrimage of self-understanding, which is the seed of life. We get messages from self from self, from the eternal self, our eternal nature. We get information, we get messages from the synchronicities around us, from things that pop up. Like I laid this spread and then all this stuff happened around the world. And we learn how to know, if that makes sense. Because all of the information is here. Our pilgrimage of self-understanding is also a pilgrimage of learning how to know. And how to know the way to create the change we want to be in the world. How to know the way to create the dreams and visions we've had for ourselves and for the people around us and for the globe, for the universe, for all that there is. We're on a pilgrimage to know how to move in the direction of those ideals and the universal truths that we think we understand. So it's not a matter of needing to get information. It's not a matter of needing to get understanding. We're already doing that, but that's not what we need to do. It's about opening to it. Not resisting what is, not judging what is in the sense of you are bad. We can decide we don't want something to happen anymore without judging that way. We say no to this, we say yes to that, and we move in that direction. And being open to moving in that direction. Instead of getting up to the brick wall and just pounding on it. We find a way to flow around and past it, leaving it behind. Not only for ourselves, but for all of us to move past it. Just as we moved past the time when women were unable to have any kind of individual lives in Western society, primarily in European and Northern American societies. Australia too. We've moved beyond that. No, we haven't fixed it all. I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. We haven't fixed the problem of misogyny. Not there yet. But we have moved past so much. We've left it in the past. We're not still fighting against it. We're not still fighting that. We've got other stuff that we want to move past now. And that's what this spread is here to remind us of. That's the first strong statement of this spread. Is opening to what is present now. The information, the knowledge, the understanding that is present now as we move and we allow ourselves to move on the journey of connecting with ourselves, the fullness of ourselves as divine beings in these bodies, and to move into the unknown and be the change we want to be in the world, to see in the world. Instead of just fighting. We be the leaders, knowing that the rest will follow. Does that make sense? Now we got 4 questions to ask of this central spread. Let's move to that first question. This first question, where is my joy? Now, when I first laid this spread, these answers were a little bit confusing to me. Okay. Because I didn't really have all of the information I needed as to why this spread showed up in this way yet. I had not had the conversations. I had not had the news about some stuff that happened recently had not appeared yet. And so this question and these answers in relationship was a little bit confusing to me. Where is my joy? And the answers were Two of Pentacles and the Ten of Swords together. Not entirely joyful cards in my perspective. Not that I have anything against the Two of Pentacles. That's not what I'm saying. But that with the Ten of Swords was like, what? What are you saying? So what is it saying? So the Two of Pentacles. This card from this deck is a little softer, a little more balanced, you might say, than the artwork that we generally recall from Pamela Coleman Smith. In that card, we see what looks like a juggler or some kind of perhaps even a circus performer holding or perhaps juggling two different large discs in the air, and they're behind this person. There are waves and there are ships. It looks a little bit unstable, keeping the balance. And so oftentimes this card is read as juggling resources, yeah? Trying to keep your balance, sometimes it could even be multitasking. In this card, it's more quiet, yeah? Those two pentacles are up there in the air, but they look pretty well balanced all on their own. It doesn't look like she's trying to work it. They're just up there, right? And she's there she's got her dress lifted up, and she's got these flowers in her skirt, and she's balancing herself, but not the kind of balance of I'm dancing on one leg trying to juggle at the same time. It's a very different kind of balance going on here, a more stable looking balance. So, this Two of Pentacles, time management, prioritization of tasks. Now, we want to make sure that we've got our ducks in a line, so to speak. We want to make sure that we're not overwhelmed by anything, that we're able to handle what we're dealing with in the physical world. Yeah, Pentacles, the physical stuff, our resources, time, money, health, all of that. Yeah. We want to be able to balance those things, to manage them without struggling too much, without feeling overwhelmed by them. It's also the card of possibilities and adaptability. Now we want to be able to adapt to the shifts in the environment, like a juggler can adapt. Now again, this card is more stable than Pamela Coleman Smith's card, but still, she could adapt to the way the winds are blowing, the way the birds are flying around her, yeah. In a gentle way, a less frenetic way, in a very gentle way. She can handle herself. So, where's my joy? My joy is I can handle myself. I didn't see much joy in that. Especially paired with this Ten of Swords. Ten of Swords. In Rider-Waite, in Pamela Coleman Smith's art, what do we see? We see a person lying face down on the ground, black, dark sky, maybe a hint of light out in the distance, sun rising, sun setting, different possibilities. The light coming or the light going away. And we see these swords that look like they're stuck in the back of the figure lying on the ground, and looks like they're wearing a red cloak, but it could be blood as well. Looking a little bit like it could be the death card. It's not the death card, but that person looks like they're really at the end. Very, very end of, if there is any life there left at the end of that. So this is often the card of painful endings, of deep wounds, of betrayal, loss, crisis. And in this card from this deck, we see this huge spider. And I still haven't completely wrapped my head around what this card is really trying to say. We see this huge spider, and it looks like there's stuff at the foot of the spider. Maybe the spider is trying to get away from that. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Or maybe it's just the spider itself that we're supposed to face. Because a lot of people don't like spiders. Maybe that's it. So that end of the road, that end of the line, the end of so much mental anguish and mental battles and communication battles and so much struggle and so much strife, the end of all that. Not the physical strife of perhaps wands, but mental, communicative, that kind of strife. Verbal battles. At the end of that. For some readers, this could also be the death of ego, which I can get that. You know, the ego is a definite swords kind of suit for me. It could be the death of ego, which would be depends on how you mean it. Usually, when some people think of death of ego, they think of it as the death of every mental function, I should say. Like the slate is completely wiped clean. And I suppose that's one way of seeing the death of ego. But there's another way of understanding the death of ego. It's the death of the struggling one. The death of the grabbing, reaching, protecting one. The death of the sick one. The egos that most of us have in these bodies have a disease. A disease of suffering. And if we can let the suffering one die, and allow healthy consciousness to emerge, that's another thing. That doesn't mean you lose information. That doesn't mean you lose knowledge or wisdom or any of that. It doesn't mean that you lose even a sense of being in the world. It just means a loss of that suffering one, the one who needs things to change. And there's a healthy ego inside of that, I believe. There is a healthy ego. An ego that knows what its function is in this physical universe. That knows that it's here to process information and help the fullness of consciousness navigate its way around this physical universe. A healthy ego is possible. It's allowing the unhealthy ego to die. And that would be a revelation of joy. When that suffering one, that struggling one is allowed to die and the healthy one is allowed to emerge, that would be a joyful experience. And in that transition, there might be some juggling, well, not necessarily frenetic juggling, but there might be some balancing, some readjustment, some adaptation that would want to take place. And maybe that's the joy that this is pointing to. The joy that comes from the spread that we just looked at. Allowing our judgment and our resistance to what is, which is total 10, that moment of the 10 of swords dying. Allowing that judgment, that 10 of swords, that final gasp of that no, to die. And allowing the healthy ego to emerge and find balance and open to the knowledge and the wisdom that all is here as we flow with our powerful flow of intention. That might be the joy that this pairing of cards is pointing to. And I think so. I think that's what this is pointing to. And I get that now. And I didn't get that when I first read this spread. I needed to have just a little bit more life experience between laying the cards and talking about them now to really get this answer to where is my joy. And remember, I wish you joy in every video. I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. And they're not divisible. They're all a unity of one, like 4 elements of one state, I believe. So this is where my joy is, in allowing that struggling one, that suffering one to die, and opening to the joyful one who exists there, and adjusting to making the adjustments that would ask of us. About to say require. Ask of us. Does that make sense? This is a deep spread. This is a wonderful spread. Let's look at it together. Let's look at that second question together. The second question is, what would feel even better? Now this question and these answers were much easier to read right off the bat. What did we have? We have the Three of Wands and the Knight of Wands. Two Wands cards, two fire cards. And in the Three of Wands, we see some figures. We got the three wands up in the air. We see figures here standing, one figure standing with their cow, and looks like to me, they're looking for pasture. That's what I see. I see this woman with her beautiful, large, very stout-looking white cow, and looking for a place perhaps to feed the cow. And so, what is this? The Three of Wands. In this card, and in Pamela Coleman Smith's card, where you see the figure, we see the back of the figure, there are three wands, large wands, almost tree size, stuck in the ground, and the figure is looking out over the sea, and there's a ship in the sea, and we see the figure's ship is either taking off to go in search of, or to go out and start doing some trade, or it's coming in, his ship is about to come in. Different ways of reading it. The Three of Wands is the card of progress. Now we've gone from the Ace, that first spark of an inspiration of something to do, a creative burst, to the Two, where we start figuring it out. What are we going to do? How are we going to do this? And the Three is where we really start to make progress. We start to take action. We move in the direction. We start getting stuff done. The progress. The first burst of activity. The adventurous course. Action from intention. This is the card we want to live, I believe, every day of our lives. Action from intention. Not action from necessity, from deadlines, from worry, from, oh my God, I gotta get this done. But action from intention. I want to do this. I intend to do this. I enjoy doing this. I'm flowing with my intention. It's also the card of expansion, of branching out, reaching out. Productivity. Foresight. Although I usually think of sight as being the air suit, this is often thought of foresight, of being able to see where to go and what will happen when we go there. You have that kind of foresight, seeing the direction we're moving in. The Two is planning the direction, the Three is seeing the direction. Yeah? And it's like this card, the woman looking for pasture for her cow, seeing the direction we want to move in, and she's already up and she's already moving. She's saying, okay, I want to go this way, I think, and we'll start going now. That's what would feel better, rather than sit here and struggling against the things we don't like, seeing the direction we want to move and start moving in that direction. Seeing the world of social and racial and economic and environmental justice and moving in that direction. Seeing the world of loving relationships and prosperous homes and beautiful lives and moving in that direction. That's the work. It's the life of the intentional life. That would feel even better. And right next to this woman, in fact, she's looking right at him, is the Knight of Wands. Which this card always makes me laugh whenever I see it. And it's come up a couple of times. The Knight of Wands. Now in Pamela Coleman Smith's art, we see a normal looking knight on a normal looking horse. And the knight is holding large but not frighteningly large baton, and the knight is ready, is moving out into action. Yeah? The card of energy, of passion, of inspired action. Yeah? Adventure, riding out and having an adventure. It can be impulsive, it can be impetuous, but there are good sides of impulsiveness and impetuousness. Yeah? There are times when we want to take the leap, we get this impulse and like, I don't know, but yeah, let's do it. That impulsive decision to go out and have some fun. That impetuous decision to, I'm going to take off right, I'm going to leave work early and I'm going to get myself a wonderful dinner. Which might seem, compared to my day-to-day routine, which might seem impetuous, but it's not complete, like letting go of all responsibility for the rest of my life and just effing off. But having moments and times of impetuousness, of impulsiveness, helps to rekindle and blaze our fires. In this card, we see now size comparison. When I see this card, I always feel sorry for, that's a salamander underneath him. This poor salamander with this very large, relatively large figure sitting on this poor salamander's back. This salamander doesn't look like he's having a very happy life right now. To me, looks a little squished underneath the big butt of this. I mean, the body proportions of this knight are pretty standard, not overweight, not underweight, not whatever that means, but a very standard looking body shape. But still, compared to the butt of the salamander, this knight has a big, heavy butt, a big, heavy body, and poor salamander. But anyways, in this card, we still want to keep those, I think, same ideas. And the Three of Wands woman is looking to the knight and thinking, yes, I want to move this way, and this way is the direction of energy, of passion, of inspired action and adventure, of a little bit of impulsiveness and a little bit of impetuousness and enjoying life and the fire of life and getting my fires stoked up. And that would feel even better. Yeah, the moment of release from the the Ten of Swords and the balancing with the Two of Pentacles is joy, but this is even better. Because now we're in motion in the world. We're creating and discovering and having fun. Right? That would feel even better. And that's a direction we can move in, living intentional lives. That's a direction an intentional life moves in. It's not like I can move this way in the intentional life to adventure and energy and inspired action, or I can move into frustration and what? Other things. They're not even coming to me now because I'm giving so much attention to the direction of my intention that other stuff just fades away for the moment. The intentional life is moving in this direction. And, okay, your impetuousness, your inspired action, your passion and mine are going to be different. They're going to look different. Your passion might be to sit and read a book. That could be a total Knight of Wands action. This passion doesn't have to mean going off on spring break to Florida, if that rings any bells for you. Doesn't necessarily mean that. Whatever your passion, your inspired action is, whatever your form of impetuousness is, whether that is having a piece of candy that you don't have, and if having that piece of candy is what brings you that moment of, yes, and opens you to the powerful flow of intention, that is what will feel better. Does that make sense? Each of our inspired actions is not the same. And there's no need to compare them. One person going off on an adventure with other college students for spring break, And one person sitting down on their couch with an amazingly enticing book with a cup of tea and a scented candle. Neither is better than the other. The one that is better is the one that is yours. And that's what feels even better. Right? Or if it's picking up a paintbrush and sitting all day in front of an easel and painting. For some, that would seem like torture. For some, that would be like a passionate, fiery experience of creativity. Each one of us has a different course of intention, right? And moving in that direction with our fire, with our passion, is what feels better. We have a third question. Let's look at that. The third question is, what do I want to happen next? And here we've got the Two of Swords. Many people do not see this card as being very pleasant. And in fact, for me, my card of the day was the Two of Swords. Very interesting, right? The Two of Swords and the Ace of Cups. So in combination, these two give a nice balance, I believe. The Two of Swords, what is that? Now, in Pamela Coleman Smith's art, we see a female presenting figure in a robe and a blindfold and two swords held like this, and choppy water behind her, and it's a card of difficult choices, weighing options, sometimes catch-22, stalemates, avoidance of choices, impasses, not being able to decide because it's impossible to decide or you are not able to decide. But for one reason, whether it's because of you or because of situations or because both decisions seem bad, not being able to decide is often the way people read the Two of Swords. And sure, choices can be difficult. And we want to weigh our options. If we've got two options, we want to pay attention to both. We don't want to look at the bright, shiny one and not even pay any attention to what this one is and say, oh, that one's bright and shiny, let's go this way. I don't think. I think the best way is to look at this one, because sometimes the one that's not so bright and shiny is actually the one that inspires us. Sometimes the one that's bright and shiny could be the one that's just fool's gold. Not meaning that pyrite, fool's gold is another meaning for pyrite, and I've got pyrite right here. Let me show you. Pyrite. Pyrite's not bad. I'm not saying that pyrite is bad, and just because it's shiny, you should throw it away. I like my pyrite. I love my pyrite. But sometimes we think it's gold because it's bright and shiny. This is not gold. This is pyrite. And we go after that, and then we get disappointed, or it crumbles or something. Now, the bright, shiny thing is not always the thing we want. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the thing that's not bright, is not shiny, is actually the thing that feeds us. Like a dark loaf of rye bread, or a sparkly thing. Sometimes it's the rye bread that actually feeds us, feeds our creativity, feeds our passion. And so we want to be able to weigh up our options and make a choice. So what do I want to happen next? I want to make a choice. I want to make an effing choice. When I come up against the things that I don't want in my life or in society, I want to make a choice. I want this, I don't want that. I want this, I don't want that. I want to make a choice. The card isn't the card of going up and fighting and killing the thing I don't want. It's the card of making a choice. And what is the choice that this pairing of cards is suggesting? Because I think the card right next to it, which is a cup, the card right next to it is responding to that choice. The choice we want to make is the Ace of Cups. And you'll notice we've got two aces in this spread. It was wonderful. We've got all of the elements in this spread. We've got pentacles, we've got swords, we've got wands, and we've got cups. Mostly we've got pentacles and wands and swords with one cup. But still, we've got a good scattering, we've got a balance. We've got everything there. We've got court cards, we've got non-court cards. We don't have many trumps. So this is really a day-to-day practical kind of spread to me. Not saying that trumps the other 22 suit, the majors, the triumphs, that those have nothing to do with practical everyday reality. Not saying that. But this is really like, and death of ego is not a practical everyday thing either, right? When we're talking about the Ten of Swords as being the death of ego, that's not like your daily run-of-the-mill Monday to Friday experience, right? It's a big thing. It's a huge thing. But still, these answers are not so archetypal, but rather human. Big overarching human, yes, but kind of human. That's a distinction that I'm not clear on right now. It's just something that's teasing me as I'm speaking. So, not laying anything down in law, not writing it in ink, just something that's tickling me right now as it relates to this spread. It's a very human-centered response to questions, maybe. Anyway, so the choice. We're moving into the Ace of Cups. Ace of Cups, the card of compassion. And here is a lotus on a pond or a lake, a body of water. Probably fresh water. I don't think I've seen any saltwater lotuses. Probably fresh water. The Ace of Cups. In Pamela Coleman Smith's art, we see this cup floating in the air. We see a bird, the Holy Spirit, or a dove of peace. We see a bird flying above it. It's a beautiful card. There's water flowing off the sides. There's, I think there's also a disc reminding us of perhaps a Eucharist or a very Christian symbol. Anyways, the Ace of Cups, the card of compassion, of love, of new relationships, new loving relationships, new romantic relationships, but also other kinds of relationships, new friendship relationships, new co-worker relationships, but relationship, emotional ties. Card of creativity, the abundance of the emotional abundance rather than the physical stuff of abundance, the emotional sense of abundance. Affirmation. Have you ever done affirmations? That's what this seed card could be. The emotional seed of what affirmations can be. And again, what we see here is a lotus rising from the water, but it's not just rising from water. Lotuses generally do not rise from clear, clean, pristine water. They rise from the mud. Lotuses rising from the mud. It's a very Buddhist symbol. The lotus rising from the mud. It's enlightenment rising from the suffering of the world. So what do I want to happen next? I want to choose the Ace of Cups. I want to choose compassion for myself, for those who are suffering, for those who are causing the suffering. At least those I perceive as causing the suffering. And if I have compassion for all of those people, I'm never going to get it wrong. Right? I'm never going to choose the wrong side. I'm going to have compassion for everyone. And having compassion for everyone doesn't mean being the I'm going to say it again. Sorry for all of you who might be in this category, but the white liberal Democrat who wants everybody to just be quiet. So let's make the racist happy. Let's make the racists and those people who don't want to fix the system or change the system, let's make them happy so that we can all get along. The pseudo friends. That's not what compassion is. That's not compassion. That's just going along to get along. Not wanting to do the work that needs to be done. Compassion is having compassion for the Hitlers of the world. Recognizing that all of that awful stuff that they're doing is because of their pain. And we don't let them do it anymore. Because, of course, because we have compassion for them. We don't let them do it anymore. The person who has picked up a knife and is stabbing themselves in the arm or any body part, having compassion for them is not letting them continue doing that. Right? We disarm them. That is the compassionate act. That is the loving act. We love them through their pain. Same thing with a Hitler. The Hitlers of the world takes the knife, isn't stabbing themselves, is stabbing somebody else. So we disarm, in our compassion, we disarm the Hitler. And we love them through their suffering. Difficult thing to do. But it's one of great strength and bravery and moving in the direction of our intentions. And that's what we want to have happen. That's what we want to happen next. What we really want to happen next. We as eternal beings in these human bodies, that's what we want to happen next. Every moment of every day to re-experience the lotus rising from the mud. Because it's not a one and done event. It's something that happens every second of every day. It's the never-ending. Okay, brief venture into the chakra system. Okay, so there are different chakra systems, and there are 7 chakras, there are 9 chakras. There are different systems. One image for the crown chakra. If you can include the crown chakra above the third eye chakra, if you include the crown chakra, one of the images for that is an infinitely opening lotus. Now we think of a lotus that opens and it's reached its fullness and that's it. But this lotus is one that opens and opens and opens and opens and infinitely opens. There is no end to the opening. And I think that's what we want to happen. We want our lotus to open and open and open, infinitely opening. Which also allows a fullness of connection with the divine up and down, in and out, all around. Grounded and risen, transcending. That's it, grounding and transcending. At the same time, and opening. That's what we want to happen next. And that takes making the choice of the Two of Swords. It's not going to happen without a choice. Okay, that's not true. Well, maybe it is true. I'm thinking of a story. From Buddhism of a monk from Korea called Won-hyo. He's traveling with his buddy. I'm just making it very colloquial. He's traveling with his buddy to China, intending to go through China to go to the origins of Buddhism to learn and become enlightened. So they're traveling through the country, moving up towards China. It's not a short trip. traveling. They find places to sleep where they can. One night, it's raining. They move into a cave and he's thirsty. It's dark. He's wet, but he's still thirsty. So he feels around in the darkness and feels something that feels like it might be a cup or a goblet or some kind of vessel, and he drinks from it and feels the sweetness of refreshment, and he goes to sleep. Sets the vessel beside him and goes to sleep. Wakes up the next morning, sees that vessel was a human skull, and the water in that skull was stagnant, not clean water, which he had experienced in the middle of the night as the sweetest water he'd ever tasted. And that was the moment of his enlightenment. I would argue that there was still a choice there. It was a split second of choice of looking at that and either accepting or rejecting. There was still the choice at that moment. He could have looked at that and completely rejected the experience, or he looked at it and accepted the experience. And he accepted the experience, and that choice was the enlightenment. Does that make sense? So we choose first. And then the lotus begins to open. We've got a fourth question here. Let's take a look at that. The fourth question: how can I be more flexible? And it's from this question that my next video is springing forth from, just in case you wanted to know. Yeah, how can I be more flexible? What do we have here? We have the Four of Pentacles and the Ace of Swords. Can you guess which card inspired me to ask the question, what the fuck? Sorry for the sudden swearing, but what the F? What the actual F? What do you think? The Ace of Swords or the Four of Pentacles? It was the Four of Pentacles. Flexibility and Four of Pentacles do not live in the same universe for me, generally. So I was thinking, what are you trying to say here? So how can I be more flexible? What do we have? We have the Four of Pentacles, which in Pamela Coleman Smith's art, probably you recall, is a dude, a male presenting figure, sitting on what looks like perhaps a concrete platform, perhaps at the top of a castle. We see a city behind this figure. We see a crown on their head, and we see four very large gold discs or pentacles, two under their feet, one here at their chest, and one above their head. And oftentimes this is the card of the miser, the Scrooge, the greedy one, clutching to their coin. This card is not so much, right? This card we saw a figure, there were three coins up in the air. There was one down around the first, second chakra in front of there, kind of floating in the air. And then this figure was holding scales, kind of looking a little bit like the Six of Coins. Actually, when I first saw this card, I first thought, the Six of Pentacles. Made me think of the Six of Pentacles, of this sharing the wealth and balancing money and all of that. But it's not. This is the Four of Pentacles. It really is the four. It's the four written right on there. We see behind this figure a shield. So, Four of Pentacles could be the miser, but it could be saving money. It could be security, having stable resources. We could go there. It could be conservatism, but in the good way. Not conservatism of social injustice in my book, but the conservatism of environmental conservation conservatism. There are many very positive, beneficial forms of conservation. Wildlife conservation, environmental conservation, species conservation. conservation of resources. That makes sense, kind of. It could be frugality, not spending money willy-nilly, but being frugal with your resources. But does that say flexibility to you? Let's move to the Ace of Swords. Ace of Swords. In this card is a butterfly. It's a moth, maybe, but a butterfly. Let's say butterfly. And it's the card of breakthroughs. Like a moth, which is an air insect, right? Which makes sense for swords, suit of air. Butterfly, air insect, beautiful air insect. Breakthroughs. Breakthroughs of ideas. New ideas. Success could be success in this card. Mental clarity. Yeah? When we think of butterflies flying free, we don't think of rainy, cloudy days, right? We think of clarity, clear skies, being able to see long distances, and these butterflies flitting from flower to flower. Truth and honesty, that clarity of a bright sunny day. I get that from this butterfly here. The Ace of Swords. And I could see how having that clarity, those new ideas, those breakthroughs could be an indication of being more flexible, being mentally more flexible, being able to break through the ideas that I've held in the past to a new perspective, to new understandings, to new beliefs, to new perceptions and new ways of communicating. Get that, totally get that. But then there's that Four of Pentacles. So what are we saying about that? So the way that I'm understanding this right now is that because we see this figure balancing, not holding on to their stuff. Yeah, we want to be frugal. We don't want to be crazy with what we have. We want to conserve what we have, but we don't want to be the miser. We want to be flexible enough to let it go. To let go of what we have. Not all of it. We want to keep a stable base, but let it go. Let it go. So, and it's in that being able to let it go, feeling secure and let it go. It's in that space that the new ideas and the breakthroughs, I think, are more possible. When we're holding on too tight to what we have, because we're afraid, because we're worried, because we are uncertain about the future, about what we have, of other people. The negative side of conservatism, when we're there, we're not going to get a new idea. We're not going to have a breakthrough. We have to open up the doors to be able to receive the breakthroughs and open up ourselves to have the thing burst forth from us as well. When we've closed our walls, nothing can burst out into the world. Be it love, compassion, or a new idea. It's all still buried here within us. But we open the doors. We allow things to flow out with our stable position. On our stable platform, we allow things to flow out. We allow the butterfly to emerge from the cocoon, right? So how have we gotten here? Where did we start? We started from knowing that there is plenty of information available to us. Everywhere in this universe. We are divine incarnated, so we have access to all of that. And the way we have access to it is to allow what is to be as it is, to accept what is as it is, without fighting it, without denying what it is. So that we can move in the direction of what we want to go into. And then following that motion as the invitation to our fullness of interaction with the divine and the eternal natures that we are, and to be able to move into the unknown. And also to be able to sit and learn from what is. And learn from a tree. as a symbol of all of nature, perhaps. Learn from the existence of all of that which has lived up to this point. And in all of that, we recognize the seed of the flower of the seed of life, which is the seed of the flower of life, yes, but the seed of life, which is us beginning our pilgrimage of change and evolution. And the way that we do that is by discovering our joy, by letting the Ten of Swords just collapse, by letting our resistance to what is collapse. And adjusting to that, allowing ourselves a moment to adjust to that. That's our joy. And what would feel better is once we've done that, or even before we've done that, but even more when we have done that, to follow our passion, our inspiration with the Three of Wands and take the adventure. Follow our inspired actions. And what do I want to happen? I want to make the choice to allow myself to emerge from the mud, to allow the lotus to blossom. And how can I be more flexible? I can recognize my stability and open the doors so that not only will my lotus rise from the mud and infinitely blossom, but I will have breakthroughs, new ideas. I will receive the information that is available from within and from the outside, what we perceive as an outside. And here we are. This is the intentional life. And how the intentional life can affect the world around us as well. Because as we live this way, others are influenced. We become influential as we live our lives from our truth, from our love, from our joy, from our well-being and pure awareness. So friends, what do you think? Let me know. Hit the like button if you're still here, because those likes help the channel. It helps get eyes here so other people can find us here. Hit the subscribe button if you have not, and the alarm bell so that you get notifications of when I upload videos. I've got another video that will be coming up probably very soon after this one, next week, that I think you will want to watch. That is not a tarot spread, it's an interview, just a little teaser. So hit the subscribe bell so you get notifications of when that is going to be up. It's going to be a really good one. And share this around. Share this on other platforms. Let other people know what's going on here if you want, if you feel called to. And comment below. I would really love to hear from you. If you're interested in a reading from me, there's a link to my Instagram account. Hop on over to there and you can send me a direct message. Unfortunately, there are no direct messaging functions here at YouTube. But if you go over to Instagram, or you can find me on Facebook, send me an instant direct message and we can figure out a way for you to get a reading. It's not a problem. It'll be fun. And it could be anything. A very simple, quick reading to something more in depth, to even if you want something like this. Live or recorded. There are many possibilities. And also, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.